Study after study continues to confirm that career development is the single most powerful tool managers have for driving retention, engagement, productivity, and results. Sounds good, but many time-starved managers report they don't have time for it. Let's have ourselves a pocket-sized pep talk because not only is a lack of time a poor excuse, it's incorrect. There are some simple solutions that can be integrated seamlessly into normal day-to-day interactions. And I've got not one, but two authors in to tell us exactly how.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
We've got co-authors in today, so let's start with Dr. Beverly Kay. She's been a mainstay in the career development field for the past 4 decades. Her insights and practical approaches to this important conversation have remained evergreen. Her co-author, Julie Winkle Giulioni, is a champion for workplace growth. She partners with publications and organizations worldwide to offer her expertise in leadership and career development and to design award-winning bespoke development experiences. Together, these two amazing authors wrote the amazing book, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. And today we're going to now talk about not the first, not the second, but the third edition, which just received a 2024 NYC Distinguished Favorites Big Book Award. Happy to have you with us and welcome to the show, Julie and Bev.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, you sound excited, ladies. But I'm going to start you out with a piece of trivia that you don't know. So you're starting out with a quiz. I'm getting at you real fast. I'm not sure if you know this, but what percentage of business books that you see on the shelves at Barnes and Noble actually sell more than 10,000 copies? Do either of you know that answer? What percentage?
I think it's
very few. You said small, Julie. Very few. Right.
What's the number?
Take a number. Let's go.
All right. Let's see. 3%.
3%. Okay.
Bev,
who would you like? This is like The Price is Right. You want to be over or under?
I'll up you, Julie, to just 7%.
Okay. Well, you kind of ruined my story here, but it's 10%. Okay.
Oh.
Which means yes. Thanks for just
Not that
pulling the
special.
life out of that one. But it's less than 10% of the books that actually make it to the bookshelves sell more than 10,000 copies. If I've got this right, your book has sold over 150,000 copies. Am I correct on that? Yeah, I'm getting some thumbs up. That's why you get a third edition. So let's dive right in. Writing is usually a solitary journey. So this one I'm curious about because I've never written with a co-author. What brought the two of you together to write this book? And Bev, let's start with you on this one.
Originally it was a mutual friend who said, I think you both have some mutual interests in this world of career and that you want to talk to each other. That's my Jersey accent coming through. So I said, yeah, I'm open. And Julie and I met a good 12 or 13 years ago. And we both were interested in the subject. And I had already written something on it. And I was ready to do more. So Julie and I said, let's talk and let's see what we come up with.
All right, Julie, you jump in from talk. Keep going.
So building upon that, the way we got to know each other after that talk was Beverly hired my firm to come in and help look at her flagship program. We did instructional design and training product development work. And Beverly, if anyone knows Bev, who's listening, you know how effusive she is with praise and recognition. And every time I would write anything, I could send her an invoice and her response would be, I love how you write. And so I was just lucky. I was at the right place at the right time with clearly the right co-author when Barrett Kohler reached out and asked Bev, it's time for you to write something new. And so she turned to me and said, are you game? and
Right.
the rest is history.
Well,
Right.
I admire it. I've thought about it. Not that I've had a whole lot of knocks on my door, but I've always just been concerned, will I get along with this author? Will they think the same way as me? And maybe that's what makes a book magical a little bit, that you get knocked from off your one kind of myopic approach, and somebody else says, let's move the blinders, take a look over here. Did you find that happening, each one of you kind of going, maybe you haven't looked at this particular area?
Yeah, I think throughout the entire, I don't want to call it exercise, throughout the entire journey, it really was a journey. We
Yeah.
would get together in person and, knock heads sometimes and give each other high fives sometimes. And it worked. And we come at it differently.
Right.
I had written something in 1982 about career mobility, and that was, stuck in my gut, but we wanted to expand. So we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and there has been head knocking, and but what's really interesting is Beverly and I share a lot of sensibilities when it comes to language. We both gravitate toward, clever turns of a phrase, alliteration, memorable ways to package an idea. And so when it came down to, putting pen to paper, there was a lot of compatibility in terms of our styles.
Yeah. Almost sounds like a relationship. I don't know if you two know this, but I've always kicked around the idea of writing a relationship book. Oh, I've never gotten past the title, by the way, but the title has always been, not only do opposites attract, they must attract. Meaning, in a relationship, morally, I want to be lined up with my partner. And for the purpose of this conversation, in terms of the way we see things, we want to be lined up. But from then on in, we want the joy of having somebody seeing things differently, appreciating things, from our instincts is the same, but seeing things differently. I just think it enriches the experience, and I hope the message.
I like that. And having different skill sets and
Right.
talents and gifts that you want to contribute as well, that complement and advance the joint mission or
Yeah.
marriage.
All right, let's climb into the book a little bit. And Julie, I'm going to start with you on this one. This is a tough one. Bev, you're going to like Julie has to go first on this one, because this is going to show your mental agility, as I call it. Whenever a new edition comes out, the first question is, well, what's different? And so the mental agility part is kind of in a brisk manner, kind of give us a sense of some of the change. I wouldn't say changes, but how it's evolved. I think that's a better word here. This third edition.
I think you chose the perfect word, evolved, because the content had to evolve to comport with the evolving landscape that career development operates within. When we were first approached by Barrett Kohler and they said, time to write that third edition, our eyes went in the back of our heads. Both of us thought, isn't what we wrote kind of evergreen? Which it is in many ways, but boy, has the environment changed over the last 5 years. Just a few things have hit our radar screens. And so when we looked at the content through that, we saw that we had some tremendous opportunities to help those time-starved managers do a better job at delivering on the expectation that employees come to work with today, to an even greater extent than before, like the pandemic. So one of the big changes is we've got a new chapter called Developing at a Distance, which speaks to the complexities associated with hybrid and remote work, not in general, but in the context of how do you help people grow when you're not co-located? What are the challenges and how do you get past that? We have dug into psychological safety in some more detail. We have dug into the idea that technology is wonderful, AI is terrific, but it's not a replacement for HI, human interaction. That said, the other thing that I'm particularly excited about with this book is it comes with its own book bot. We've created a custom GPT AI powered resource that every reader has access to. So a reader can read the book, have great intentions, and they can then go forth, they can practice, they can get feedback, they can plan conversations, all in the privacy of their own little chat room, to really help translate the ideas into action.
All right, now hang tight on that. Bev, take that one a little bit deeper because we need a little more information on that
Yeah,
one.
it's just like, managers are so busy. Like, please, I need space. And and if they don't read the book, which I hope they don't do that, and they say to the book bot, hey, I've got a 27-year-old employee coming in, and I don't even know where to start. The bot will say, well, tell us how old she is, tell us a few things, and then give a couple ideas, actually, so the manager can breathe and say, oh, it's that easy. I never thought about it that way.
In addition to giving thoughts and actually a roadmap for what the conversation could look like, kind of a sloppy copy first pass, also gives you the opportunity to practice. So if that manager's feeling a little nervous, they want to work out the kinks in a safe environment, the bot will play the employee's role. The
Wow.
manager can play his or her role, try it out, and then get some feedback so they can refine their approach in this safe space and then be much more both competent and confident when they go live with their real team members.
That's terrific. The trainer in me is just getting excited because I keep telling the trainers and the speakers that I work with, look, it's nice to inform and inspire and motivate individuals. But at the end of the day, we're toasting. You don't know it, but the author or the trainer is toasting when we say somebody actually implemented the idea that we put out there. They didn't just read about it and celebrate it. They went and made it happen. You're going to be
Right.
getting the emails from people going, we did that and it's working. And, that's what makes us writers. That's what makes us want to come back for more. So I love that. And I've never heard that before. I've had a lot of authors on this show. That's exciting. Really exciting.
And it's free. By free, I wanted it to be worth a zillions, but we decided no, let's let it
It's
out there. So
it's
it's
free
free on the
with the
website.
book, with the
With the
book.
With
book.
the book. Yeah,
A
so you
must
have to,
purchase.
even though if you don't read it all, you've got to
Right.
have purchased the book and at least opened it a little bit. And,
Good.
and then we can give you the bot.
Good. 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 And let me remind people the name of that book again.
Help
It's help
them
them grow
grow.
or watch them go.
There you go. That's a great title, by the way. Who came up with that title?
Beverly did.
Beverly.
I'm into rhymes and I'm into all of that. So give me a subject and I'll give you a rhyme. But
Outstanding. I love the story about watching a book go through its changes. I've got one of my books that's gone through some multiple editions, and it's a presentation skills book. And truly, I'm still standing pat on communications, communication. But when I'm standing there telling you which side to stand on an overhead projector and how to keep the piece of paper from blowing off because of the fans hitting it, you can understand why a reader would go, "Who is this guy? When's this guy going to wake up?" So
when
there are
are you
certain
talking
things
about?
that an
Right.
author desperately wants to just sort of cherry pick, clean up, and then get that extra chapter or two that says, "Oh, and by the way, the world changed during a pandemic, etc." So love hearing that we got an edition. You got the ability to kind of make those cleaning moves. Okay, let's talk about managers for a moment. Tell me some common mistakes that managers make when it comes to career development, and most importantly, give me a sense of how to avoid them. And Julie, I think we'll start back with you on this one. And just give me one or two, and Bev can have a couple.
And I'll give a few.
Yeah, I think the number one mistake, no, I know the number one mistake they make is they think they don't have time for it. When we originally wrote the book 12 years ago, we did some research and we asked managers what's getting in the way. 3 to 1, it was time. And you can't argue with that. Managers, leaders, it's They don't have any spare moments. And if we continue to define career development in terms of events that, you go off, you sit in an office and you do something, nobody's going to find time for that. Few people will find time for that. So it gives us an opportunity to redefine career development in terms of a relationship. And once they do that, then they can work past that mistake. So that's number one. Bev, what would you add?
I think number two, closely related, is the belief that everybody's going to want to move up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have enough ups to go around. So if I open the door to that conversation and they ask me about up and I say, nah, not yet, I might lose their enthusiasm and interest. And, I've only been saying that for 4 decades, that up is just one of the ways to move. And in the book, we educate managers about a variety of ways that people can grow. And I think that's essential.
Yeah, and both of those are among what we refer to as immobilizing myths. They're myths. There's a little kernel of something that started it, but they've grown to the point where managers just make the choice not to take action, and that's a problem because we know career development is huge in terms of a lever for satisfaction, engagement, results.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been on the crusade for many, many years, and I mean at least 20, where I actually tuck into my management. When I'm teaching companies how to sell, I have to work with the managers. So I'm teaching them really kind of how to give feedback and coach, but I always stick in a piece on how to give recognition because, and give them 20 ways to recognize a human being that doesn't require money. So you were talking about time. I hear from sales managers and they say, I recognize this person for basically doing their job. Okay, having a good month. And it'll haunt me because they're going to want a lot more money. And what do I do during the performance review? When we talk to the employee that says, I really had nothing to do with that. I just want my manager to tell me I'm doing a good job.
Right.
And there's that sort of disconnect that goes there.
Right. And it's about a manager just noticing.
Yeah.
Noticing a change in the excitement level of an employee, the fear that maybe comes across their face around that new assignment, and asking, tell me what's going on. And there's a 1-minute chance to learn about your employee right there in the middle of another sentence about another project, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's notice, notice, notice.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to someone yesterday who has a new boss, a relatively new boss, and went in for their first one-on-one. And she came out floating on air because this person was paying attention.
Paid attention.
And she said to me, I didn't know he was paying that kind of attention. I haven't felt valued like that in a long time. And so recognition in some cases doesn't even have to be words. It's paying attention.
Right.
Just giving people that attention is huge.
Yeah. I wish managers would wake up and understand that because there's some statistics out there and they may be 10 years old now, but the statistics were above 80% of employees leaving because they felt that they just weren't being recognized and just didn't feel fulfilled. And it just makes me sad when I hear that. It's just disappointing. Just 20 seconds and I'll move off of this, but I'll tell you how innovative Xerox was. And, I'm always going to bleed blue X's, seem to work them into every other podcast. But that when I was at Xerox in the late 80s, there was a management training program that if you thought you wanted to be a manager, they'll put you in it. But the thrust of that program was, and they never told you, was, well, we'll show you all about being a manager, but we're also going to figure out whether you truly want to be a manager. Because it just seemed like everyone's like, well, I work and then I do good and then I become a manager. And not everybody wants to be a manager. It just, we seem to be kind of shoving them there. And this was a program that actually in disguise let people sort of search out that answer for themselves. And I thought it was really innovative.
Right, right. And the sad thing is the number of people who say, I want that, take it, get there and say, ooh, not only am I not good at it, but I don't enjoy it. And instead of saying something to their manager, they leave.
Right.
And isn't
Oh,
that a shame?
yeah. There we are.
Yeah.
There we are watching them go again. Yeah,
That's
there
right.
were a lot of scenarios in this program where you basically were making a choice over loyalty to an individual or loyalty to the corporation. I kept making the decisions loyalty to the individual in every case study. And that was when it began to dawn on me. And I had some help on this nicely that this management thing may not be for you. And it was the best decision that I ended up not making was I don't want to be a manager there.
Right.
I'll manage myself, but
It's
I
enough. Right.
discovered that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Let's keep journeying on. I want to get to that new chapter a little bit because that one fascinates me. And that's, I think you titled it Developing at a Distance. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So here we're talking about people that managers that may not be instinctively finding this gear that they really should look for to not just recognize, but just help people grow and develop. And now we've got them remote, and now we've got them virtual. Tell me some of give us a couple of tips, or maybe some things that have changed when we don't have people in the office as much. And I think I'm going to go Bev this time if I got my order right. So give us a couple, and then we'll let Julie kind of mop up.
The easiest tip is to remember to ask them some questions about their day or their week or that last project. And watch if you have Zoom, watch their facial expression, take it all in. And maybe the easiest question is, tell me what you loved about last week. And tell me what, if you don't want to use the word love, tell me what meant the most to you about last week. Or tell me what was the hardest part of last week. And that's a way to tap into what they were doing and where they were last week, and whether that was a plus for them or a big minus for them. And then go a little deeper. Ask the second question and the third question. Because so many times we ask a question, they answer, and you move to question number 2 before you've really taken what you could out of that first one. So that's just one easy thing. How was last week?
I like that. And Bev, just to sit on that for a second, what I also like is, and this trainer in me again, but really conditioning people to think in the positive, meaning last week had its pros and cons. Every vacation, every moment, there's a couple good and there's a couple things we do differently. A lot of times, unfortunately, we seem to be and instinctively move to, how did you do? Well, I can't believe I forgot that and I did this wrong. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get people conditioned to say, I really like the way this worked and I really like the way this went. And if I could do it again, I do this and this, but in that order. But it's usually reverse, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your facial expression goes
Yeah.
along with it. If it's something I love, you'll see me light up in a certain way.
Right.
And I
Right.
think we want to watch for that light in people's eyes, even if it's on the camera
Yeah.
and not in person.
And that's what I love about Zoom, by the way. Somebody called me last Thursday and I went, what's that noise? I looked around like, what is that? Oh, it's a phone. It seems like it's from the 1920s already for me. I want to visually see who I'm speaking to for just what you said. It's not sometimes what they say, it's the way they're saying it. And how do we see that on a telephone? I don't know how did that stay around as long as it did? And get it off my desk here. All right, Julie, give us a couple more.
So I think the first thing is, as leaders, we've got to really check our biases at the door.
Yeah.
One of the additional biases that we need to struggle with right now is proximity bias, the natural human tendency to gravitate toward those that you're around most. And It was one thing when you only had a handful of folks who were remote or hybrid, but now we've got a critical mass of people. And so that's the first thing. Second thing is bring intentionality to it. As Beverly was describing, have a great question, be intentional, because our research found that what's required for success is to do everything you would do if you were co-located with greater intention. Because, and this is a third thing, there is an invisible curriculum in every organization. There is so much learning that happens by osmosis, by hanging out together, by watching the dynamics in the meeting or the dining room or whatever it might be, that folks who are remote and hybrid don't have access to. So as leaders, we need to narrate some of that. We've got to give some extra color commentary. We need to help kind of pull the curtain back a little bit on some of those dynamics so that folks don't miss the nuances of culture and other organizational issues.
Yeah.
It could be as easy as, here's something as a manager I learned last week when I was doing X. So it's bringing them into I would say the human world, the work world where people are moving around, and that could be a way of doing it.
Well, I love your word of intentionality. I think I love the word authentic, and yet I'm feeling like it's getting overused at this point. It's that one again. But give me a word that stands. What's more important than not just going through the motions, but making me believe you really do care about my week, my work, my what I'm trying to get accomplished. And so sometimes that's not the words, it's the tune. And again, I want to see that facial expression. I want to want to feel it that manager cares, because for many of us, and I've been on my own for 31 years now, and I still, when I hear the word performance review, it's like the arm hairs stand up. If I had hair on my head, it would stand up too. But my arm hairs start sticking up, because that was never a good feeling for me. And I was a hard worker. But I was a perfectionist a bit, and I knew we were going to start with some things that were negative, and it only came around once a year, and there was a lot riding on it. And so you guys think a little bit differently. You want managers to have kind of regular interactions with employees. Let's breathe some life into that, okay? And Julie, I'm going to let you go first on this one, so we can get rid of that, I'm getting called into the manager's office, this can't be good.
Well, and that called into the manager's office, those processes and systems and forms and cadences. I mean, that's all really well intentioned. Organizations need that data, but it was all put in place to make sure that people at least once a year got to have that kind of conversation.
Right.
But I've never talked to an employee who said, I'm really where I am today, and I've grown so much because of that IDP back in 92. I mean, just that's not where the growth and the relationship building is. It's over time. And so what Bev and I talk about is something that's more like a time released formula, a drip campaign. We refer to it as stealth development, where as a leader, you're so noticing, to use Bev's word, you're so cue sensitive that you're picking up on opportunities where you could just, with really well-timed question, take an interaction you're already having and just wring some development goodness out of it. And so we can have very short, 2, 3, 5-minute conversations layered over time that create a real development relationship versus that one and done development event.
And it could be that the person in that moment can't answer. And what Julie and I found in our research from Bluma something or other, Zygarnik from the 1930s, that people will go home and sleep on the question that they couldn't answer. And I kind of like that. My boss asked me this, and I was stymied. Or talk about it at the dinner table. You know what my boss asked me today? And that says, okay, you made a connect. And they're thinking about it. Very important.
I've never had a manager do that before. It was seemed to be all wrapped up into one big happy little conversation bubble. By the way, most of my performance reviews went well, but they still took 6 months off my life each time I went in there. And I'm a guy that doesn't get real anxious about things, but boy, those were tough. I love that. Uh, let's if you don't mind, I want to jump back to that AI piece, and I also don't want to lose the fact that I loved you just throw these things out. That's what authors do. You throw things out that you're very comfortable with, but they land on people like me, and they go, "Wow, I like that." HI instead of AI, human interaction instead of artificial intelligence. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that if we could. Just AI's role. And I don't want you to. I want people buying this book. You hear me, ladies and gentlemen? You are buying this book so you can get into this, and then you can tell me about it because, well, you won't have to because I'm buying the book. But talk to me a little bit about without giving the secret sauce up, but tell me a little bit, go a little deeper in terms of how that works. Because I'm used to authors proudly saying, we've got our book and you can go to our website and take a quiz or interact with our website, but it's a very light interaction. This sounds a little bit deeper, but I want to hear more about it if I could. And Bev, how about we start with you?
That bot, it looks like you, by the way. Come to think of it.
Oh, it's a good looking bot.
Handsome bot.
It's going to be distracting.
We fed it the whole book. We educated it about the typical questions and how it might answer. And amazingly, I mean, I used it to talk about what my daughter should be doing. And she's 36 years old, and it gave me some ideas. And it uses ideas from the book and takes in what the person asking is really asking and tries to go a step deeper to say, tell me more. And I think it's a great aid. It's not the only way to have a conversation, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I love, and I'm going to let you jump in, Julie, what I love is that when we write books and we write business books, we're not writing, Grisham law books, legal thrillers. When we write a book, we want there to be more. We want this to just open the door to the conversation. So that's why I'm somewhat obsessed with the thought of how this is working, because it makes me joyful to hear that we're going deeper, and that this book, it just got you going on your journey. And Anyway, that's cool. Julie, would you want to throw something on top of that?
A couple of things, just mechanically, Rob. It's a custom GPT. It's been trained on the book and some other intellectual property from Beverly and myself, but it has really specific instructions so that we can control to the greatest extent possible. It is AI, it's going to do its own thing now and then, but we can control the experience so that when a leader comes and says, I need help, that help comes in the form of, for instance, our hindsight, foresight, and insight model. It'll reference our model about how feedback should operate and that sort of thing. And so if people have a Chat GPT account, they'll just get the bot, they'll open it, it'll be right there. In fact, they could even start typing, I could start talking about my relationship with Beverly and the development I want to do with her and everything. I can save that and keep coming back, conversation after conversation, adding to it. So there's a real richness there. If folks don't have a Chat GPT subscription, there's a free one that they can get, and it'll just open up in there and you can offer it as well. But we really see that in publishing, people aren't reading as many books, or they're not reading the whole book. And we know in learning and development, there's this huge knowing doing gap. You might know what to do, but are you doing it? Right. And so this is intended, the book bot is intended to be that bridge to make people feel like, I got this. I've worked out the kinks. I can do with this with relative effectiveness, and increase the likelihood that they'll actually have those conversations.
Right. And you can go back to it and say, I tried, I need a different approach.
Right.
It didn't it didn't work for me.
Yeah. That's,
And
by the way, where I'm not a big chat GBT person, but and I don't want it to write for me because I feel I'm grew up as an athlete. I feel like I'm going to atrophy. I want to search. Boy, when I get stuck on a title, when I'm looking for a more creative way of saying something, boom. I really like that little nudge that I get. So I'm seeing it integrate. Let's shift one more time. Okay. I just know from training companies that I usually get the employees, it's the managers that are giving me the trouble trying to get them into the programs. Let's shift to the employee for a second and say, okay, maybe the manager didn't have time to get this book or read this book. What advice would you give to an employee who feels that their career development needs are not being met, and we want them to act professionally, but what advice would you give them?
I'd say read the book cover to cover, even though it says manager on it, because in the book are delicious questions that we're saying your manager's going to ask you. So if he or she doesn't ask, you can offer. And
Mm,
just looking through the questions, hundreds of them that are spread throughout the book, and coming in with an answer and saying, I wonder what you think about this. And here's what I thought about something I read. So it really could be a great book for any employee to read cover to cover. Just like we say, manager, apply these questions to yourself.
right,
Same idea.
right. Julie?
I think the first thing that an employee needs to take into consideration and be careful about is it's easy to make assumptions about why the manager isn't doing it or doing it well. What we hear from so many managers is, I've never seen this done well. I've never experienced it. I don't know what good looks like. And so the beauty is when an employee takes ownership of their development and takes the initiative to go and ask for what they want in, as you said, a professional, in a non-threatening way, to say, hey, I see that technology is really big in our future, and I'd love to get on the bandwagon. I don't want to fall behind. Could we talk about what it's going to take to make sure that I'm able to contribute? When an employee takes the initiative to do that, to help the manager help them, they are actually helping the manager. This is like stealth management leadership development right there, helping that manager open the door to a whole new skill set and the kind of conversations that not just that employee, but probably everybody else on the team wants as well.
Excellent. I love the idea of being equipped with the question that you should be asked. I think, again, we as trainers, we do that all the time. I know what questions you should be asking me. And if you don't, I'll bring them up in a more creative manner, but we're going to get that topic covered
Yes, yes.
one way or the
By,
other.
by George, we will,
By
right?
golly, my gosh, we're going to get to that point. All right, last question for you all. The future. Let's take a look at edition number 4. Okay. Uh, what do you see the future of career development? How do you see that evolving?
So probably fewer pathways, given how quickly things are evolving, how some jobs are dropping off, new jobs are dropping in. It's kind of that traditional go from point A to point B to point C doesn't feel as relevant today. So I think probably more organic. Opportunity and more organic trajectories. And also, we've seen the democratization, let me say that 3 times fast, of learning. You can click on a button and you can learn almost anything you want. That kind of access. There's such a learning marketplace out there. I think we're going to see more of a coaching and mentoring marketplace too, where you can go and you can access the coaching resources and whatnot, which is going to be so important. I was just reading some research. I think Bev and I were talking about it. MasterCard suggests that 40 to 50% of us are going to be part of the gig economy by the year 2030. So we need to know how to advocate for ourselves and get the learning and development and coaching and mentoring resources we need.
And I think more and more individuals are going to help each other. like it's going to be not necessarily a manager, but a group, a trio or a quartet of people who care about each other, maybe meeting twice a month and just chatting about their careers. Because out of your experience, you can give somebody else advice you should be taking yourself, and I think we'll see more, maybe call it cohort learning. Julie and I both have friends that we talk about often, talk with often about career conundrums. And that needs to happen.
Yeah. And yet, I don't want to bury the lead. I've been teaching people to sell for 40 years. And somebody handed me a book one time from I think it was 1913. It was an old insurance book. It had a guy with a Feodora. What's the old hats they called with the feather in it, right. Whistling and walking with his briefcase. And on page 1, it said, you got to ask questions and listen. There are certain basics. And I think there's some basics that you're drilling home here. You've just found some great ways to implement as well that people need to feel appreciated. I don't think that's going away 10 years, 50 years. It hasn't gone away in the last hundreds of years. And it's sort of like that book. It's evergreen, right? So, but I'm so happy that you guys got to write a 3rd edition and get it taken care of and clean it up, because particularly with as much virtual as we're doing, I just think it's terrific. The book is called Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, 3rd edition. Over 150,000 sold. It's winning awards. It's right there on Amazon. You get it, you buy it, then you put your cherry on the sundae, you put a nice little review by it, and everybody's good. And then once you read it, you can get that chat GPT. Anyway, you guys have been terrific. I'm just so great to see you both again. And I'm just grateful you were able to stop by and be on the show again. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Invitation.
You're always going to have an invitation with me, both of you. Real fast, how do people get a hold of you? And let's start with Bev on this one. Bev, how do they get a hold of you?
Bev@bevk.com is
Good.
The easiest.
Good. And K with an E at the end. Kaye.
Yeah. Like
good.
Danny K, right?
Right. Yeah, I remember Danny K. Okay. And Julie.
It's juliewinklegiulioni.com. And if you want to learn more about the book, it's available, that kind of information is available at help-them-grow.com.
Perfect. Great. Okay. Well, folks, we'll do it again as well as we can next time. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.